Hero shooters, for some reason, have been a point of debate as of late. The repetitive nature, overpriced cosmetics, the lack of variety, but personally, it's still one of my favorite genres. If you're new to the genre, hero shooter is a subgenre of shooter games which emphasize hero characters that have distinctive abilities and or weapons that are specific to them. Team fights, over-the-top characters, lots of explosions, an item or attribute or kit builds that add extra layers of strategy. Are you a slayer, tasked with stacking up kills, or are you the support fiend who stun locks, blinds, and disables opponents, setting up your slayers to cause some serious mayhem? The games have similar characteristics proven to assist in their popularity. Typically a low barrier to entry, except Concord, which may have already dug its own grave. A boatload of cosmetics, simple to pick up, and difficult to master. Overwatch, Paladins, Apex Legends, Valorant, TF2, Gigantic, the list goes on. On the horizon, we do have two titles making their way into the hero shooter library, both of which I've had the pleasure of playing via playtests, and I must say the future is bright. I'll preface all this by saying I'll be investing lots of time into both games for play and content. I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just sharing what I've experienced to date and hopefully help inform you to decide which one you might want to invest more time and money into when the time comes. Now, both of these titles are in development, so everything is subject to change. Marvel Rivals did announce a release date in December of 2024 this year, while I believe Deadlock is a bit further out. Side note, I am going to skip on a few items I normally cover, including story and QA. Both still need a lot of work, and keep in mind these are early access playtests, and they only offered multiplayer, so I do not know if either game will include story elements. Another item to note, the Deadlock team stated in the playtest that they don't want too much content shared out to the public, so I'm going to try to limit the amount of images or video that I use in this video. So, Marvel Rivals or Deadlock? Let's talk about it. Game's description. Marvel Rivals is a superhero team-based PvP shooter. Assemble an all-star Marvel squad, devise countless strategies by combining powers to form unique team-up skills, and fight indestructible, ever-changing battlefields across the continually evolving Marvel universe. Deadlock is an upcoming action game by Valve. It combines the hero shooter and MOBA genres. Deadlock is a 6v6 shooter, similar to the original Overwatch in format. It will be Valve's first true third-person shooter. Players control powerful hero characters and escort NPCs down several lanes in order to destroy the enemy team's stationary defenses. Marvel Rivals is developed and published by NetEase Games, while Deadlock comes from Valve. Let's talk about the target audience. Hero shooters, it's an easy genre to break into. If you've spent any amount of time in a first or third person shooter, you are going to adapt quickly. If you like objective focused fighting, round-based fighting, big team fights that are chaotic and colorful, characters with ultimates, kit building theory, you're gonna like these titles. For Marvel Rivals, the obvious draw is the lore and the characters. You're playing comic book characters handpicked from the Marvel universe. You finally get to Hulk smash Rocket Raccoon, you get to drop Thor's lightning onto Groot's head and blast Spider-Man out of the sky with the Punisher's arsenal of weapons. For Deadlock though, it's a little different. You've got a slew of original characters with darker sort of noir themes, different mechanics, and a more robust map with lots of extras. You've got creeps, towers, mini bosses, neutral mobs, kit building, and different types of objectives. That said, the core of each game is the same. Team up with other champions, team fight the enemy champions, and win the objective. Most gamers know what a hero shooter is in 2024, so if you're familiar and a fan of the genre, both of these titles, in my opinion, are must-tries. If you're new to the genre, Rivals is going to be an easier game to break into. We'll get into that a little later. Let's talk about the art style. Now, this is where Marvel Rivals shines compared to the current state of Deadlock. The game is visually attractive, and the cosmetics, though our options were limited in the playtest, incredible. The art team there is crushing it. It looks like they plucked the heroes straight out of the comic book and dropped them into a PvP match. The way the outlines are across the characters, the menus, the animations, the overall look and feel of Rivals is, in a simple term, great. Deadlock colors are a little more muted, almost like there's a cool color filter over it. Rivals is bright in your face. Now keep all this with a grain of salt as neither title is done, but almost certainly I would put my money down Rivals will be a prettier game to look at. And I think part of the reason they went third person in Rivals was because of the cosmetics. I can only imagine Marvel fans are going to care deeply about the way their heroes look, and superheroes have a great closet, so it makes sense. Deadlock characters and art styles, again, it's a little bit darker, a little bit shadier, a little more noir. For some reason, some of the character designs, it made me think of old detective movies. like Jack Nicholson in Chinatown. It's just different, and people are for sure going to have their preferences, but the way Marvel Rivals looks, it's going to be more stimulating to the eye. Let's talk about the combat. Heroes for both games are going to have a short list of abilities and an ultimate. Both games offer movement abilities for selected champions, but Deadlock has a built-in stamina meter which allows for double jumps, sprints, slides. This meter refills over time. In Rivals, there is no leveling or investing in-game resources to buff your hero or abilities, but in Deadlock, you capture souls to piece together your hero's kit, buffing your health, your weapon damage, your utility. You can even purchase in-game items that can be reused throughout the match. In Rivals, you get all your abilities from the start at maximum power. Deadlock, you must level and unlock your abilities. In addition to that, each ability can be leveled up, adding additional bonuses such as longer utility times or increased damage. In a nutshell, Rivals, you load in full power and you can immediately focus on fighting the enemy heroes and taking objectives. Deadlock is more of an arms race. There's a long list of actions you can take to positively or negatively impact your team chances of winning. What Rivals does well in combat, one is a generous hitbox. As an older gamer, this is great for me. Team fights are visually appealing, watching all your favorite superheroes clash. Rivals offers this unique team up upgrade. It gives bonuses when certain heroes are in play at the same time. For example, if you have Groot and Rocket Raccoon on the same team, Rocket can actually ride Groot around. If Scarlet Witch and Magneto are on the same team together, they can damage bonuses to each other, and also permits Magneto to carry around this giant floating sword as an attack option. If Rocket Raccoon and Punisher are teamed up, Rocket can drop a specific ammo pack for the Punisher, which greatly increases his fire rate. I just think this is a fantastic feature that adds an extra element of strategy, especially if there are no items or character enhancements in the game. So when you're selecting heroes at the start and in mid-game, you can coordinate with your teammates to give your heroes an advantage. In Deadlock, team fighting is just as important, but because there is kit building, I'd argue it's more important to get yourself stronger with a great combination of item purchases and ability upgrades as quickly as possible versus worrying about the team comp. And I'm going to say that at least in lower ranks and pub games. If you can win your lane, you're doing your job. Deadlock has in-match shops where you'll spend your souls, which is the in-game currency, to buy character enhancements. This is going to help determine how quickly you can win your lane and how deadly you are at the end game. There's going to be deep Reddit threads on what to use on every character and what builds are best. Deadlock is going to be where the number crunchers are going to have the most fun. Rivals is focused more on team fighting and the objective, in my opinion, while Deadlock is more focused on objective fighting and the hero potential. How strong can a single hero get? Both games ultimately come down to heroes using their abilities and weapons in the right places at the right times. A single ultimate can sway a team fight and win the game. I would say healers are more important in Rivals, while Deadlock, you can build yourself into a self-healing machine. Hero kills in both games are extremely satisfying. Let's talk about the core mechanics. So this is where people are going to make their decision. Marvel Rivals is closer to a traditional Overwatch feel where your team of 6 pushes or defends the objective against the enemy team of 6. They will almost certainly have additional modes, so if you don't like the style, don't worry, more to come. During a match, you can change your heroes as often as you'd like to counter enemy heroes or to play a hero more advantageous to the map you're on or the section of the map that you're on. The game is played from the third-person view. Deadlock combines the hero shooter and MOBA genre. Give me Overwatch and a Smite, Dota, or League combination, and you're going to have the general idea of how Deadlock plays. You select your hero once, so whether your game is 10 minutes or an hour, you are stuck with your decision, and this is why it's so important to figure out great kit builds for the heroes. In Rivals, there are no creeps or base defenses. In Deadlock, there are. Deadlock games will last much longer than a Rivals game on average, and there are a lot more, at least for now, bonus objectives on the map, such as a mini-boss or a courier mission. Hidden around the map are permanent upgrades you can discover by breaking these little golden statues or boxes. I do hope either game includes bounties at some point. I freaking love bounty missions. In Deadlock, like Dota or League, the maps are busy and offer a ton of things to do besides point and click. It pays to explore and will force you to keep your head on a swivel on both offense and defense. And when I say people are going to make their decision here, it's because, in my opinion, Deadlock is a lot heavier of a per game mental resource commitment. There's just more to do, and there's more to be aware of, and you might play an hour-long match and still lose, which can be deflating. Included in Deadlock are zip lines on each lane and teleporters around the map to help players move faster to problem areas. During a match, enemy creeps or mobs deploy down these lanes, and it's your team's job to fight off not only the enemy heroes, but these neutral and enemy creeps while trying to push your lane forward. Sectioned between these lanes are stationary defenses, which take a little more team effort to destroy, but once destroyed, gives your team additional bonuses or resources. Rivals is a more straightforward two teams fight for an objective. One feature Rivals does offer is destructible environments, which is one of my favorite game elements all time. If an enemy has been camping a bridge too long, you can just Hulk smash that thing into oblivion. Boom, they can no longer camp that bridge. The environmental elements do respawn over time, but again can be destroyed right away. I enjoy both styles of gameplay, but you will certainly be in the mood for either one or the other when you turn on your gaming machine. Also, your time constraints are going to affect your choice. It's likely that you can get 2 to 3 games of Rivals in the same amount of time you can get a single game of Deadlock, assuming evenly matched teams, of course. However, a victory in either game is extremely satisfying. Let's talk about the audio. Marvel Rivals is further along in this category at the moment, but Deadlock will catch up, I have no doubt. A challenge devs have with the hero shooters is balancing the amount of shit on screen at any given time. You're going to need clear audio and visual cues to effectively maneuver the maps and have successful team fights. You need cues when champions call out their ultimates, when teams claim certain objectives, when the map shifts against you or with you, and when bonus objectives appear. Not to mention, there's just so much shit on the screen at any given time. If you have a full 6v6 team fight and everyone's using all their moves at the same time, it's hard to see. It's hard to hear. Both games will need to excel in the audio category to be considered great. Both are okay for now in the audio department, but we're all expecting massive improvements before the full release. Something I do enjoy in Rivals is the quirky dialogue between heroes. You're going to hear these characters reference items in the Marvel lore when they communicate, cracking jokes at each other's expense. Both games have narrators, which again, I do lean toward Rivals right now. Some of the voice acting in Deadlock's not my favorite. I'm not sure that that's going to be a focal point like it is for Rivals. Rivals is going to have a higher floor to hit in the audio quality when it comes to characters because of the magnitude that people love Marvel heroes. So they have a much harder job of nailing those voice actors, getting that commentary right, making sure the lore is correct, versus Deadlock, which is going to be all original. So have more lenience when it comes to the voice acting in Deadlock versus Rivals. Let's talk about the content. The name of the game is multiplayer. Single player fans won't find a whole lot of joy in these parts. These are multiplayer games, or at least will be primarily to start. There's always a chance for PvE content down the road, but we all know how that went for Overwatch. So for the content for both of these games, it's going to come down to new heroes, maps, cosmetics, game modes, constant balancing patches, and how good the ranked modes are. The hero list is a big draw, so this is where both titles are going to need to shine, and for better or for worse, the more heroes the better, as long as they're balanced, which is again a constant battle. The ranked modes are going to be important for both, and if both games are lucky, they're going to support some sort of pro scene. Rivals will have the advantage in content, in my opinion, because the lore already exists. They have a huge roadmap to pull from on characters, the designs, the skins, the maps, the abilities. Deadlock's going to have to be original start to finish, so I imagine they will release heroes at a slower pace than Marvel Rivals. Also, the Marvel fan base is a lot more rabid. They're going to be quick to give suggestions to devs, and I would imagine that devs are going to be more open to responding to their feedback and making changes in a timely manner. Deadlock's going to have more risk in the changes that they make and what they release. That said, I trust Valve, not worried. And since neither has been released yet, we are likely to see a ton more content at release when the full game drops. So, if you had to choose one to spend your money and time in at drop, what's it going to be? If you're a Marvel fan, the choice is obvious. If you love games like Dota and League, the choice is obvious. Both offer 6v6 objective-based game modes, big team fights, and third-person action views. Both have a high chance to be free to play, and both are fun. I had a blast playing both. I will say Deadlock is going to be harder to master. It's a more complicated game end to end. It's got nuance. It requires a lot of team coordination and map knowledge, a lot of theory crafting when it comes to character builds. And frankly, it's just going to require more time to excel, to be great. Rivals, hands down, is easier to play. It's a more forgiving combat system. Visually, it's way better in its current state. And you're going to be able to play a lot more matches in the same amount of time versus Deadlock. To top it off, it's fun to be a superhero. It's fun to play as a superhero and to fight other superheroes, so that part is going to be hard to argue. In my opinion, Rivals will appeal more to the masses and the gameplay will be friendlier to accommodate everybody. Deadlock is going to offer a greater challenge to team play and strategy. Either way, I'm playing a lot of both. That's it for me, folks. Thank you guys for sticking around for this long-winded video. You guys can find me at Ghost Stories Gaming or Ghost Plays Games on all things social. Make sure to check out the Midnight Release podcast, which is available just about anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace.